So I don't know what it is with anime now going for two cores more and more, but I'm very thankful for it because Fairy Gone is going to be running for 24 episodes. I know for the people who seem to hate this show, that will probably rub them the wrong way, but for me, it makes me so excited because to know that this isn't going to be just a 12 or 13 episode season, knowing that they clearly want to go into the world history, just the character backstories, and obviously the current future story that is playing out, that makes me incredibly excited that we're going to learn so much about this world, about this war, and what led all these characters down their current path and what they've lost and what they really want to gain. That makes me incredibly happy because each episode so far, and I don't expect this will last for 24 episodes, but I could easily see this lasting for 10 to 12 episodes of kicking off the episode with one of the characters talking about the past, reflecting on what's happened, what they've lost, and what really went down with this war that was supposed to unite the world, but clearly isn't doing that great of a job. And I just really like that so far. I like the exposition. It is very ham-fisted. It is just giving you a lot of information, but I like the idea that it's actually one of the characters talking and reflecting, so it gives you that personal touch so you understand what's happened. Like, Wolfram, he lost his family, he lost his wife, his kid, like, he's lost a lot, and you're learning that this war, like, similar to pretty much every war that's ever happened, there was a lot of questionable things that went down. Knowing that they turned like 300 people into these fairy soldiers, essentially wiped out this species to make their super soldiers, and only 17 actually survived this war, and essentially they were made illegal after the war was concluded. Like, this war has a lot of questionable things going down. There's a lot of cities, there's a lot of names that get thrown around from people to just places, and it's obviously going to take a while for us to learn all of the names and all of the facts, and even if we don't clue into all of these facts, it still is going to add to it feeling like a real universe, like it's not just another random town or location. There actually is a personality and character to these locations, and after this episode I realized what it kind of reminds me of. In a lot of RPGs, you'll get a lot of text that you can read, but you don't have to read. Like, there's obviously a main story, there's side quests, but you can pick up journal logs, things like that. What Fairy Gone reminds me of is those RPGs where if you take the time to read the extra logs, you get a lot of history and backstory to extra details that may not influence your main plot, but it gives you that extra character to make it feel like a real universe. Fairy Gone to me, like when they throw around these names and places and just overall facts that, yeah, it may be hard to follow completely, but even if you don't pick up on all the details, remember all the names, it still gives you that extra layer to make it feel like a real universe rather than just a simple copy and paste anime story that's a fantasy design kind of military setting and then we call it a day. It actually feels like there's a lot of thought going into this, and the creators wanted to give a fleshed out universe that probably by the time we reach episode 24, we're going to know a lot of things about this world to make it feel like it's not just a simple military driven story. This episode was really interesting. Just there wasn't much action, but it was really just seeing where things are going. And there's so many characters right now, and obviously it's a smaller but still important cast of characters that are all going down a certain path in life for a specific reason, and it's interesting to see how all their kind of plot points are connecting but for different reasons. Obviously, we don't know all of their motivations, all of these organizations and what they're truly going for, like what Free truly wants, what Veronica truly wants, characters like those. But it's interesting that they're all connecting right now with these fairy tomes, that if you can get all the pages and kind of build them, you can probably do some crazy shit. And we're learning that the Black Tome may be something very similar to what our main character Marlia's went through, because she might be possessed. That's the logical conclusion that people are coming to, because she wasn't made into a super soldier, yet she has a fairy, and it seems like this Black Tome might be the same thing that can give other people that power or something to that nature, and we're seeing that they're all going after these tomes. It'll be interesting to see what the true purpose and overall endgame for this is, because I don't expect the tomes will be the entire point of this story, especially if we are going to have two cores. If this was just going to be a one core, I would expect the tomes would be a one and done deal. We'd get them all around episode 10 or 11 and then we'd see the conclusion. But they're obviously building up to something a lot more complex than just that, especially with how many characters and just personal motivations are at play. What I really like in this episode, once again, is the soundtrack, and this was actually one of the more tamer soundtracks that we've heard throughout this series. A lot of it's been kind of rock and metal, but there was a piece of music near the beginning of the episode when we're just kind of learning and reflecting on the past for some of these characters, and it's a very simple song, just a couple of chords, but it's a very acoustic track, just kind of meant to make you kind of feel a little unnerved, a little sad, and kind of reflecting, almost like it was a rainy day, something to that nature. And then when we had this chase sequence, which was almost like jazzy, it was such a weird type of music, but it oddly fit for what they were going for, because even though there was someone trying to steal the tome, it still made it feel like it wasn't supposed to be like the most intense chase sequence ever. I mean, we got characters who really probably don't really view this guy as a threat, just more of a hindrance, so there's no reason to make it feel that intense, like they're fighting a giant fairy creature or something to that nature. No, it was supposed to be a little more fun and cute, and I kind of like that. I like how, even though Fairygon is set in this really brutal time period with post-war setting, I'm glad that they're not just trying to be dark and gloomy just for the sake of keeping it dark and gloomy. Like, it's okay to have these lighthearted moments and just, it's not even like it's lighthearted, it's just more realistic, more grounded, that not everything has to always be dark and depressing. You can have more simple and mundane scenes that aren't trying to beat you over the head saying this is depressing and feel bad and feel like shit's gonna go wrong. No, it's okay to just say it's kind of fun just having a chase scene, not trying to make you feel hyped up, but rather this is just kind of fun to watch and I can't wait to see where it's gonna go. We get introduced to a character though, Bittersweet basically is her name, and I like this character. Obviously we haven't seen her too much, but she kind of reminded me of Faye Valentine from Cowboy Bebop in the sense that Faye Valentine, she had this way of using her looks to manipulate people, but that's not who she was. She wasn't just her look, she had a badass side and she knew how to get what she wants. This character reminds me just like that. She knows how to manipulate the crowd and get to where she wants. She uses her body in a certain way to manipulate some easygoers, but it's still, she just has this badass side, especially seen by how she can basically run a marathon, not even break a sweat, pull out a sword, be a badass, and she even has a pretty ridiculous fairy by the looks of it that I don't know what she's doing, but it does look like Marla is going to be in for a headache because that doesn't look too good. I like characters who know how to use what they have to get what they want. They're not just their initial image and that's all they are. They're just a pair of tits and ass. No, she clearly knows how to use what she has to manipulate the crowd, which is very good for assassin work or just anything like this where you're trying to get a really good treasure to get you to where you want. I'm really excited because all these characters are connecting in such weird ways. Like, you know, they have a history, they have these connections, but even their current like plot point, like where they want to go, they're still connecting, but they got a lot of history with each other. It's going to be exciting to learn what that history is, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. When you have a cast of characters this large and a series that's going to be running for 24 episodes, you have the time to take it easy, take it slow, reflect on the past, reflect on the present, and where you want the future to go. And Fairygon clearly wants to tell a big story. It's not just going to be a post-war setting with a couple of characters. No, this is a story that clearly affects the entire world and these characters in their personal motivations, and that's what makes me really excited for this. Because even if you just look at it at a surface level, you say, okay, the characters' faces, they're not overly polished, they're not overly detailed, some of the animation is pretty basic, but it just feels like it has a style that works. It almost feels very retro in a lot of ways. A lot of older anime, they weren't always trying to be the most flashy, and they weren't always trying to have everything move 24/7. Yes, sometimes they had still frames. Sometimes they just panned around to make it look like it had movement. It kind of feels almost like a retro but modern anime, but with a modern storytelling technique that they have a clear vision of where they want to go. And that's what makes me really love Fairygon, is because it has a pretty interesting premise with the whole fairy soldiers. There was this great war. That war affected a lot of characters, and there's still a lot happening because even after you finish a war, not everyone's going to agree with the solution and end result for that war. I love post-war settings. I think it's the most unique story kind of setup that you can do because after a war's concluded, not everyone's going to play ball. And that's what makes me excited, especially for soldiers who are super soldiers. There's only a handful of them left, and some aren't going to agree with the current way of life. And that's what makes me excited. All the personalities I like on a surface level, they've been introduced as fun personalities, either badasses or kind of seductive badasses. And I'm excited to learn more about who they are and really where they want to go in life, because it's not just like we got Marlia and then we call it a day. We got Wolfram, we got Free, we got Sweetie. Like, we have all these characters that is really going to make this series into something special, and the history and politics to this overall government is what's really going to tie it together as a really interesting package when it does wrap up. I think the voice actors are killing it. I love the goofy, the silly, and the more serious and dramatic. I think just the way the sound, from the voice acting to the music to just the visual presentation, even when it is basic, it still gives it a style that I adore and gives it this really unique aura that you don't get to see with modern anime too often. And I think this is one of the best series of the season. I know that's a bold claim, but that's how strongly I feel about this series. I think knowing that it is going to be running for as long as it is, it's going to be a damn fine series by the time it wraps up, hands down. I know not everyone's going to watch it. I'm going to be one of the few handful of people continuing to watch this, but I hope that as it gets going, people start seeing what I'm seeing in this show, but I guess only time will tell. But for everyone who watched episode 3 of Fairygon, what did you think? Did you love it? Do you hate your favorite moment? What do you think of some of the new characters we got introduced to? Let me know down in the comment section below. And be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.